Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the lab for Chapter 12 that I'm going to open up this morning, um, June 7th. This lab is going to be a little bit different in that this lab is actually going to be used by yourself. What you're going to use is, or yeah, you're going to use it yourself. You're going to build a website and you're going to deploy that website and you're going to use it as your web portfolio. So this is your first real world, quote unquote, web portfolio. So I put a little paragraph here that I'm going to read because I think it's important. A good web portfolio is your golden ticket to an entry level job. I'm a big fan of Willy Wonka, the original Willy Wonka, where you needed a golden ticket to get into the chocolate factory. And so I think of a good portfolio as that golden ticket to an entry level job. Ranken is all about preparing students for that entry level job. Um, in this industry, we are all up against our competition is a lot of bachelor degree programs. Basically, if there's a university in the United States, I promise you that university more than likely teaches computer science and teaches development. So that's our competition. So how do we stand apart and how do we stand above those who have higher credentials, at least on paper, than we do, is with a good portfolio. So this is very, very important to help us stand out from our competition. The lab for Chapter 12 is to build and deploy the first version of your web portfolio. Your portfolio should be continually improving and evolving into better versions. And so this semester you might build your first portfolio, and then next semester you do a project that you can add to. For example, a final project where you're, in the C# class you build an executable application that does something that you can show off in the code that you wrote. So you might, this semester you build the web portfolio, next semester you have a project that you can add to the web portfolio. Third semester though, you learn full stack web development. So in third semester you might redevelop the portfolio itself and rebuild it because you've learned additional tools and additional skills to build a higher end website, a full stack application. Then fourth semester you might build a mobile application that you can give a link to. You know, like here's my app on the Google Play Store. So you can either add content to the portfolio each semester or you can completely rebuild it. The point is it's kind of like a resume in the fact that it's never finished until you get that first job. Like you're going to be working on it until you get that first job. I will tell you when graduates tell me that they're looking, one of the first things I do is I say, okay, let's look at your portfolio. Let's see what's working. I can tell how serious they're looking by the professionalism and the amount of work that they've put into their portfolio. If I'm clicking through their portfolio and they've got broken links and they've got missing images and you know, I could tell they put this together last minute and you know, basically it's crap, then I could tell why they don't have a job, basically. Because that's how important the portfolio is. Stuff that I look at, it's what employers look at. A good portfolio is one of the most important things that you can show an employer to help you land your first development job. For developers, a good looking portfolio is not as important as good quality content. We're not designers here. We're not looking to make, you know, the best looking portfolio. You don't want it to be bad looking, you know, but you don't that's not as important as the content. So what is the content? Quality content is achieved by building websites or apps for other people. And I do think that other people is the most important part. You can build something for yourself. In other words, you are your own client. And that's good, but better than good would be to build something for someone else, because they're going to throw something at you that you've never done before. They're going to make you step out of your comfort zone, and that's how you're going to learn and grow. So this is this first assignment where we're going to build a web portfolio and deploy it, so it will be live on the internet. It will be built with Bootstrap, and we can use Bootstrap templates, and I'm going to talk about Bootstrap templates, kind of their advantages and disadvantages and is some resources for where to get Bootstrap templates from. There should be, and it could be a single pager. In other words, a single page application where you just have different sections: the About Me section, the Resume section, a Contact section, Coursework, and Portfolio. Or you can have different pages: an About Me page, a Resume page, a Contact. That's really up to you. About Me is pretty obvious. You're going to put your bio, your hobbies, what makes you unique, and why an employer might want to hire you. Your resume would include a link to an updated PDF document of your resume. Contact would have a contact form or an email and a phone number. Coursework would be examples of your schoolwork, in particular like your final projects that you do in each semester. So you have 4 semesters, you'll have 4 final projects. So in a perfect world, you graduate from Ranken and you'll have 4 links under coursework because each semester has a final project, and you should be able to demonstrate each semester's final project under coursework. You could include more than that, but I really think ideally you just include the final projects, because a lot of what we do is kind of like small examples of work, and these final projects are a little bit bigger scoped, and I think those are more impressive examples of your coursework. And then what portfolio would be...
Hey, Mr. J.
Yeah, what's up?
You're actually doing all this off screen. I just left to check because I thought my stuff was frozen, but I can only see your desktop.
You know what? Yeah, sure. I just got to change my screen share in Discord.
Yeah, I thought my screen froze actually, so I left and came back.
No, I got to change Windows. And I think it is this one. Go live. Okay, you can see it now?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. Portfolio would be exactly this: quality content by building websites and apps for other people. So under portfolio, if you view coursework as what you do for school, portfolio is what you do for outside of school. Okay, and that's the difference between those two things. Now, if you haven't done anything for someone outside of school, that's okay. You will. In fact, this summer you will. Okay, it is part of your final project to build a website for someone else. Okay, so coursework versus portfolio, that's the difference. Your pages must be full of meaningful content to clients or employers. No broken links, missing images, lorem ipsum, non-working code. Each page should validate HTML and CSS. Include an image of yourself or a logo of your design. Okay, if you don't want to, have the image of yourself, a couple things about an image of yourself. Number one, I know a lot of people leave their LinkedIn, for example, they leave their LinkedIn profiles without an image because they're not confident in their looks. And, I would encourage anyone in that case, if you're not, confident in your looks, that's an area where you could work on faking it till you make it kind of thing. It is important to have a professional image of yourself on your LinkedIn. It is important to have an image of yourself on your portfolio, in that you're at least confident enough to, network and brand yourself, so to speak. But if you really, just aren't interested in an image of yourself, what I would encourage anyone to do here is just get a headshot, a professional headshot. If you know someone with a good camera, just put yourself in a well-lit room with a white background and your Ranken polo, and smile, and use that as your image. You don't want this is a semi-professional to professional headshot. You don't want like your Facebook profile picture, for example, of you, on vacation in Colorado or something like that. You want a professional headshot. A working contact form. So there is a website called jotform.com. I just throw that out there where you can make a contact form. Literally, you can go to jotform.com and watch like a 2-minute tutorial on how to make contact forms, and that will send. They'll give you some embed code with like an iframe, and you just copy and paste that iframe into your Bootstrap site, and it'll make a contact form. It's literally all you need to do is know the URL of Jotform. You make an account and watch like their little tutorial video. Super simple, super easy to get that up and running. And then I'm going to work with everyone to show you how to deploy this on my web server. So I've got this web server, iwt.ranken.edu, and I'm going to give you a directory on my web server so that it'll be your first initial, like in my case, E for Evan, and then my last name, Gudnestead, for example. And I'll follow that syntax for each one of you, and this will be the URL for your web portfolio. And again, we're going to learn a couple different ways of deploying websites. This is just the first way, and we're going to use a piece of software called Filezilla. So you should have downloaded Filezilla client as part of your setting up your environment document. So there's a tool called, again, Filezilla client, where you're going to take the files on your laptop using FTP and transfer them to my web server using some credentials that I give you. So I'll record that process and show you that. Here's some tips for a good portfolio. I'm going to do something. Let's see. If you built a portfolio, If you built a portfolio that you're content with for now, you need to work on content. Okay, so content, I realize is not easy for a lot of people. You really got to think about what you want to say about yourself and what images you want to put out there. But it is important to kind of put in time to think about what paragraphs of content and just work hard on the content, because again, quality content is really important. So a couple of sites that I want to, a couple things that I want to talk about, and these are just, I'm pretty sure these are just tips on building a web portfolio, and you can kind of follow these and kind of read through some tips on good portfolios. And I just want to kind of ask you to read these as you're working on this assignment. I want to make sure that all of these are still make sure all these are actually still live, because I haven't checked that in a while. Okay, they are. The next thing I want to do is, I glossed over this concept of Bootstrap templates. You remember Bootstrap themes? Bootstrap themes are different than templates. Themes are just changing the defaults. Like, for example, you do like BG primary, like the default BG primary is blue. But if you go to Bootswatch, these are all themes for Bootstrap that kind of change the default colors and the default looks of everything. And literally, this is just a CSS file that you can download, and it changes it changes the fonts, it changes the colors. This is a theme. I'm not talking about themes here. I'm talking about actual templates, because we are not designers. Okay, I am personally a big fan of using Bootstrap templates. I will tell you, I've taught this class for more than 10 years, and almost consistently, almost 100% of the time, when my students use templates, the end result is better than when they don't. Maybe not 100% of the time, but 99.9. It seems like 100% of the time, using templates is always the way to go for the end product. In other words, making an end product that the people are impressed with, that they like the most. People like the most. So what are Bootstrap templates? Well, there's some different sites out there. Because we're not designers, you quote unquote outsource the design. You let someone else make a good looking site, and then you customize it for your client. And so I'll give you several sites where you can get templates from. Some templates you have to pay for. Of course, I'm not going to encourage anyone in this class to pay for a template for themselves. However, you have that option. And so I'm going to give you some resources of Bootstrap templates that you can use. Some are paid. A lot of them are not. A lot of them are free. So let me... I believe Theme Forest is the one that comes to mind that I've used. Of course, I'm looking for my bookmark of it. And Theme Forest. And now this does have WordPress themes, and we've kind of done a little intro to WordPress last week. This is one that comes to mind, but HTML website, if I go to, for example, bestsellers, you can notice a lot of these are built with Bootstrap. You want to make sure that the theme that you buy or don't buy, I'll show. Let's just do a Google search for Bootstrap. So I'll show you the process of basically downloading a theme for free. So for whatever reason, like this is like an easy, quick theme that I've seen a lot of my students kind of like, oh, that kind of looks like a good template for a portfolio. So a lot of my students choose this. Now, a lot of my students have chosen this one. I've seen a lot of students choose this one. This site, because it's like the first result on Google, a lot of students kind of default to these themes, and for that reason, they're not necessarily the best, right? You don't want a portfolio that looks like everyone else's necessarily. But let's just say you do some research and you do a fair amount of research and you come across a theme that you like. This particular site gives it to you for free, so click on free download, put it in my downloads. It's going to give me a zipped folder, and you can extract this. Now I use this is WinRAR extractor, but you don't need any extra. Windows can extract a zip folder. So let's go and click on OK, and I just extracted my. I basically put this website and all of its files in my downloads folder. So here was the zipped folder. Here's the unzipped folder. And then I can kind of go into here. If I right click this and open it with code, of course I don't have Visual Studio Code. I didn't check that box during the installation. So let me do this. File, open folder, and there's my folder. And there's my home page. And there you could see it's using Bootstrap. So here it includes Bootstrap. This is in my styles.css. And I can launch this. And here is the website on my local computer. And this is where you can start the customization process. Because you know HTML and you know CSS, you know, you would know that, hey, if for example I want to change this line of code, there's my H1 that says start Bootstrap, that's inside of the header. So I got to go header, inside of the div, then there's an H1. So there's header, there's div, and there's my H1. So it says start Bootstrap, and you say right, and you're off to the races. And so that's the quick version of how to start a portfolio from a template. And you can add sections, you can remove sections, right? Like if I don't want this about section, you know, I could come in here and inspect this section that says, let's see, has an ID of about. So it's a section with tag with an ID of about. And come in here, search for the ID equal to about, quote, about. There's my about section. There's the closing about section. I could just come in here. If I don't want this, comment it out, delete it, whatever you want. Actually, commenting out didn't work, so I'll just delete it. Refresh the page, and I've deleted the about section. So that's the process of starting from a template. You are allowed to start from a template. I will tell you it is my personal preference. Now, why do some students not like this? Some students say, well, I want to write everything from scratch. And I will tell you, I understand that logic, because as you're going to school, you're learning to write code, you think you got to write everything from scratch. But in the real world, it's about developing as many quality websites as you can. In a lot of cases, you're working for companies and they're trying to pump out websites in a very efficient manner. So using templates is common. I could think of multiple employers that have told me those words, right? That oh, you're in school, you think you want to write everything from the ground up. And it is important to understand the pieces, right? That's why you do learn coding from scratch, so that you understand what all of this is. And I would argue, for the most part, we've covered all of this in this class. There should be very little that is unfamiliar. In fact, the only thing that we haven't covered yet, and we're going to tomorrow, is this form tag and all the pieces there. But everything else in here you should have seen. All the CSS with these variables, and we haven't covered those too much. But most of the CSS, the media queries, the selectors, all these properties and values, you've seen all this and been exposed to it. So it's important to be exposed to it and be able to write it from scratch, but a lot of times it's about building good looking sites, and if you're not a designer, let someone else design it. So that's how you use a template. Let's get into some resources as far as what are some different template sites that I recommend. Okay, let's see. Ranken. Let's see. Here's Bootstrap. Okay. Oh, you know what? I was thinking Theme Forest, but actually one I like a little bit better than Theme Forest is Template Monster. And so let's just say that your client is a fast food restaurant. So you can kind of come into here and search for fast food and get at least a site with a good, for $20, right? Get a good looking site, because again, we're not designers, but for $20 you get a really great looking template for you to customize with, right? So I mentioned this once before, I'm going to repeat it. It happens almost 100% of the time, if not 100% of the time, that my students who are learning just the code, we don't learn a ton about design, when they use these kinds of templates, be it they paid $20 for a premium one or not, they end up with better looking sites. Now, all that goes back to the lab. A good looking site is not as important as quality content, right? But I'm just showing you that you can outsource the design for free or for $20 if you want. So probably Template Monster is going to be the first place I go. They do have free. They've got a bunch of different. You can kind of say, hey, I want to make sure it's Bootstrap, right? So you click on Bootstrap. Now we got 150 fast food website templates that are built with Bootstrap. So that's one. Let's continue on. Ranken, Bootstrap. I'm just going to go ahead and open up these other ones that I have just to cover them. And there's a few more that I had saved in my phone, which is why I ran upstairs to grab my phone. And I'm going to copy these URLs into the. I had template mag. So let's start with Template Monster, which is my personal favorite. These are just a couple others that I've seen used along the way. Free and premium Bootstrap templates, business, corporate, agency, portfolio, e-commerce, landing page, and more. Okay, then I've saved a few others on my phone. And you know I'm guilty. I found these on Instagram. When am I becoming? Saved. I'm a millennial. Technically, I'm like the oldest millennial possible. I'm almost 40. But what's the younger generation than millennials? Gen Zs maybe?
Zoomers.
So Gen Z?
Gen Z, yeah.
Is that all you guys Gen Zers?
Whatever, man. I'm just me. I don't even know.
Good answer. Don't put me in a box. All right. Well, I'm acting like, let's see. There we go. Web dev. Got it. Okay, and I have not looked at these other than to save them, so I'm just going to HTML5 up. Make spiffy HTML site templates. These look good. And I don't know that these are Bootstrap. So let's just like look at this one. And that's kind of cool, right? So let's hit F12 and let's look at Control F to find Bootstrap. So I don't think that these are built in Bootstrap, although probably they're just using media queries and things like Flexbox to get responsiveness, right? So I'll put this one in here. By the way, you should follow some web development resources on Instagram. It's pretty neat. I've learned quite a bit. Okay, so this is all about WordPress. So I'm not gonna recommend that one. Okay, can't hurt to throw that one out there. It's also worth mentioning that you could, in theory, you could offload the cost of a template to your client. Here's the idea, Mr. or Miss Client, I'm not a designer. I didn't go to art school. I can make a good-looking website for you, but to buy the template, it costs $20. So we'll have to pay $20 for a template. It's a pretty easy conversation to have. Now, I don't know that this is. This sounds more like a tool. So I'm not going to recommend this one. Now this is interesting because next semester we'll get into building React pages. And even at the end of this semester, a little bit as well. So I'm kind of curious to come back to this one a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there. I mean, I've given enough resources to keep us browsing. I guess the last thing we're saying before I cut myself off on this lab is, if I'm building a website for a client and I want it to look good, you would think that 95% of your time is spent coding. But I would argue to spend a little bit more time in the research phase of finding a good template, because to the end user, I mean, they just want a good-looking site with their information on it. So to be the most impressive in many cases, the students who spend the extra time going through all these sites and finding the best starting point of a good-looking theme that meets kind of the industry's needs, or the client's needs, a lot of times they end up doing the best, so to speak. Again, these are all that just to say that these are optional. I still understand the point of view of, nope, I'm doing this from scratch and I'm doing it myself. If you want to do it from scratch, you want to do it for yourself, I don't blame you one bit. I don't think you'll produce a site that is as good looking as you would otherwise, okay? But I respect that point of view, and ultimately it's up to you. These are optional. Any questions before I stop myself on the recording here? Okay.
Oh, well, actually, I do. Okay, so I have me and a couple of guys. I guess we have projects from last semester. So what would I do to showcase that on
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Like it's a C# program. So how would would I take snapshots of it or?
So there's a couple of approaches. You can get it all into a zipped folder, and then you could let the end user download the zipped folder. And so keep in mind, when you have a link, there's a download attribute. And so, if you just link to a zip folder that includes the executable and includes all your source code, that's one option to give them kind of full access to all your source code and the executable running application. The other option would be to give them screenshots of code chunks, as well as the downloadable executable. And so there's a couple of approaches. I personally lean towards just giving them full access to the source code, because if they're willing to look at all your source code and critique it, and if an employer is willing to look at it, then you want them to see it. So that's what I lean towards. So yeah, you could take the folder that was created by Visual Studio for you, right-click the folder, send to compressed, and then you'll make a zip file, and then you just create a link to that zip file, and then that'll make a downloadable file for that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.